and Jonathan Green. It's the fastest hour on the radio. Speed City.
Good morning, gearheads, and welcome to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM. This is John Massengale. I'm sitting in the studio in Austin, Texas, and we could not be more excited for the start of the 2022 Formula One season. I'm joined in the booth here by Dave O'Neill. Dave, how are you?
I'm very good. Yourself?
I am fantastic. Dave's the ex-Haas F1 team manager. I got Les Kaiser to my right. How are you this morning, Les?
Hey, doing great. Jazzed up and ready for this. It was a fun qualifying.
Well, we also are very excited this year. We're going to have Chris Medland joining us from Bahrain, intermittently in the pre-show and the post-show. And Jonathan Green's not going to be able to join us this weekend. He is working some Trans Am commentary out in Charlotte, North Carolina. So he's not going to be able to join us. But we are excited. We have a fantastic show. And our special guest, of course, as always, Bob Varsha. Mr. Varsha, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, guys. Fired up. Let's rock.
Let's do this, man. I am so excited. I want to start with you, Bob. I can't remember any season starting with so much excitement because of all the new things and all the new possibilities. What about you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we talked about it endlessly last season, that this was going to be the biggest change in decades in Formula One, certainly the biggest change in terms of the cars themselves since the hybrid era began in 2014. But with the new aerodynamic profile switching from downforce generated above the floor of the car, let's say, to underbody tunnels that generated under the car. The cars look fabulous. We were afraid they might all look the same after the concept was introduced, but you look at the cars and they're all different, and all the treatments span the imagination. Yeah, sooner or later, everybody will realize what works and what doesn't, and there'll be that homogenization once again. But for right now, I think the cars look fabulous. Driver lineup is great. Got a couple of new faces, a couple of familiar faces back in the race cars. I love what I'm hearing about the attitude of everybody in Bahrain. I think it's going to be exciting if qualifying was any example.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, because qualifying, well, honestly, surprised to not see Max Verstappen at the top because he was so fast, but not terribly surprised because the Ferraris look fast. Of course, we have Charles Leclerc on pole, and we'll go down the full qualifying grid here shortly. But Dave, I got to ask you, you spent so much time in Formula One, and this has got to be amazing to watch this for you as well, seeing so many new things happening.
Yeah, there's so many changes there. I mean, I think the biggest one, or the biggest two, are the aero, the way they're using the aero, and of course the wheels. You know, the wheels have been 13-inch since the 70s. And any street car, road car you drive now has either got 18, 20, 21-inch wheels. So there's a huge mechanical shift as well. The older tires took the spring from the tire itself. The mechanical spring from the tire, and now they're having to move that into the suspension itself. So the sidewalls are much smaller. They have less give in them. So the force is now taken in the suspension. So there's not only have they had to conquer the aero side of things and changes, they've also had to work out what they're going to do with the suspension. And the suspension's changed quite a lot. It's gone back to basics, really. So you don't have the kind of active ride help within the suspension there. So two forces meeting each other, aero and mechanical.
So Dave, don't you, as a team and mechanic and engineering all around the team, would you prefer the suspension the way it is now versus prior with so much tire wall involved?
I think the key to it is that, would I prefer it? I like the way technology goes in F1. So I guess if you call this a step back, it's a step back, step sideways, and a step up, really, because hopefully we're going to see some proper racing now. People are going to be closer together. One which we saw yesterday was hard work pays off. We see Magnussen up there in seventh place. They come from the back of the grid, and there was no way on this green earth that they would have been 7th this time last year. So I think it's really good, especially as a fan now sitting here watching. You want to sit down on the sofa and stand a chance of someone else winning, which is great.
Hey, Les, guys, I want to ask you, what are you, of all these things that are happening and what's happened so far, what are you most excited about?
I'm going to say the aero is a big part that I like. Everything's different. I think the cars look better with the aero the way it's looking now. I'm anxious to see how they refine it, throughout the season, make their little tweaks and whatnot. I did see that most of them were using the vented covers on it for the higher temps that were expected and that they were trying to control yesterday.
I want to let everybody know we are watching Facebook and YouTube as we are broadcasting, and there's T&W watching from Thailand. That's pretty cool. So, we're watching that. But, well, Dave, let me ask you this. To me, with this, talking about the suspension tire thing, I don't want to dwell too much, but I've got to get your take on this a little further than what you were saying, is that, before it was the tire that was so much of the suspension. Now the engineers have that control. Pirelli had it before, and you just had to deal with it as a team. Don't you prefer that to being able to control that suspension rather than having to just deal with whatever Pirelli gives?
Well, I think that's the interesting dynamic is, how quick can the engineers get on it and sort it out. But again, I guess the years of development, or decades of development on the 13-inch wheel have kind of just been ripped up and thrown away overnight, really, with the new 18-inch wheel and less movement on the tire wall. So those are the interesting factors that they have to conquer, and of course the kind of buzzword that everyone's been talking about is the porpoising and what teams have got on top of it quickly and what teams are struggling.
Bob Varsha?
Back in the day when I was covering the Indy cars, Champ Car World Series, an engineer told me that a quarter of a pound of air pressure difference in those tires, completely different animal, but air pressure was so critical, and the tire as a part of the suspension was so critical that a quarter pound difference in air pressure had a massive impact on essentially the effective spring rate of the car. So these really minute tolerances are something that people in Formula One are going to have to explore and master and deal with on a regular basis. So tires are going to be huge a long way into this season.
Bob, this is so exciting with all of these changes, and we just don't know what to expect today.
Absolutely.
It's crazy because, we're sitting here looking right now going, okay, Max and the Ferraris look fast. The Haas team has just surprised everybody. I think I knew that the Haas team was going to be fast. On Friday, on the very first practice, they came out and they looked pretty good. But by the end of the day, they weren't really that fast. They were kind of towards the bottom. But the out on social media, the admin was saying, "Yeah, we didn't use any soft tires." And I thought, okay, these guys really are holding something here. It was almost like Haas was sandbagging. Did it feel like that to you, Bob?
Well, no, actually, and Dave knows this better than any of us. And that's what testing is for. That's what practice is for. Try things, explore the tires. But I will say that seeing what Kevin Magnussen was able to do with extremely limited amount of time in the car and all this time away from Formula One tells you the difference a driver can make, at least in these cars as we see them starting the 2022 season.
Well, you know what? This is a good time to talk about Kevin Magnussen. How exciting has this been to watch Kevin do what he's done, come back in with a moment's notice. I think it's been something like 17 months since he's been in a Formula One car. He's obviously been driving sports cars and not just sitting on the sofa watching, but still. So Dave O'Neill, we got to talk to you about this because you were part of the team that at Haas when Kevin was first brought in, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was I remember it well. If we go down that road, we're doing the Mexico Grand Prix, which year it was. Come to me in a second, but Gene and Gunter had the discussion who we're going to put in next year to partner Grosjean, and there was several choices. There was Hulkenberg, probably Perez, a couple of F2 drivers, and who was free, kind of young, free, single, ready to go, was Kevin. And Gene liked his style, Gunter liked his style, and he was able to come and bring a fresh set of feet to the team, and he got chose, and the rest was history from that point. But he brings a lot of experience. I think the first race he ever did, he stood on the podium with McLaren, and then they started the demise there, which didn't see the true Kevin. So he's kind of jumped on the stones and some of the lily pads and on the way, and managed to get in and out of it. But he spent 2 years away. He's probably much more mature now. He's ready to go, and he understands about scoring points. Probably signed a multi-year contract, which is really great for Haas. And also, the other thing to bear in mind is how much experience he brings to the team with Mick. So Mick was driving the team forward, and now they've got Kevin there. He's probably 2 or 3 tenths quicker than Mick, so Mick's going to catch up. He's going to put pressure on Kevin, and that's how they're going to drive the team forward and keep the two drivers as close as possible.
Well, we have a clip that actually you asked this question of Gunther Steiner back in 2019. We have a clip of Gunther talking about Kevin Magnussen. It was right after he left the team, and he was talking about his desire to help the team. So let's play that clip.
Yeah, no, actually, Kevin came up to me the last race and said, hey, if you need any help, I'm more than willing to come, because there's a lot of small tricks in Formula One. If I can give them to the young guys, you guys have been good with me. I want to be good with you. So we started to look into it, because he announced, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, that he's going to IMSA racing with Chip next year in a Cadillac. So when there is time, but he said he would love to come to the test as well, but he will help us out. But he offered it up himself, so which is, I think, more than you can ask for. That shows how committed he is to the team. He said, I have no problem to come and help you. So I said, I think I will pick him up on that one, just to give the new young guys, because he has been with the team for 4 years, a little bit of maybe a faster start with some tricks he learned over these 4 years.
Yeah, how awesome is that? And what about, did you guys see the photo on social media that Haas tweeted out, and it was Gunther shaking hands with Kevin after he came out of qualifying 7th with this huge grin on his face. We've got it up on YouTube now, this huge grin on his face, grasping Kevin's hand. That was just an amazing moment. And these guys have truly come full circle. Not that long ago, we finished 5th in the championship, and now they've got a chance to do some good things this year. So that is awesome. Well, guys, let's go ahead and get our first break in. And when we come back, we've got Chris Medland live from Bahrain. He's going to join us over the phone. So stay tuned for that. You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM, and we'll be back after a short break.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
Thank you, Mr. Verstappen, for bringing us back from the break. You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM, and we are so excited for the 2022 Formula One season. And one of the things that we're excited about this year is we have a new member to the team. I want to welcome him right now, because he's on the grid in Bahrain, Chris Medland. Chris, welcome to Speed City.
Thank you very much, guys. Good to be here. It's getting exciting, isn't it?
It is getting exciting. Well, tell us how does it feel down there on the grid right now?
Yeah, it's just in that sort of setup phase where a lot of the mechanics have come out with all of the trolleys, the tires. They're setting up their grid slots, putting tensor barriers up to make sure nobody stands where they shouldn't. So I'm actually opposite Kevin Magnussen's grid slot right now. I heard you guys just chatting about him. So I thought I'd place myself here. The pit lane itself hasn't quite opened yet. That will in a few minutes' time. But it's kind of the first few VIPs, TV crews, and mechanics are getting set up on the grid. And yeah, there's a decent crowd in. The grandstand's filling up. The sun's going down. It's got that real atmosphere that we've actually missed for a number of years with the COVID restrictions. So yeah, you can really feel the excitement building here.
Well, go ahead, Bob. You had a question.
Yeah, I did. Chris, with the recent COVID positives for Sebastian Vettel and Daniel Ricciardo, is there any concern or urgency there in the F1 community on site that COVID may rear its ugly head again as a problem?
I wouldn't say specifically based on the way the last week's gone. I think there was a little bit of an expectation that the way some of the world is opening up, that there would be a bit of an increase again. I mean, in the UK, there are now no restrictions anymore. And obviously, most of the teams are based there. Most of the drivers have been there. Bahrain's restrictions have eased a lot as well recently. So, I mean, there's no mask wearing on the grid here. This is like it used to be back in 2019 and before COVID hit in 2020. There's just a little bit of kind of acceptance that just because things have been easing doesn't mean everyone can go crazy. So, yeah, there's a few drivers have decided they're going to be a little more cautious. The McLaren guys always wearing their masks wherever they go. A few drivers have kind of taken that approach. So it's now coming down to each team about the kind of rules they want to put in place. Whereas before, Formula One did that. So I think F1 understands, you know, this is the way we're going to have to move forward with the world. But for the teams, you now have to control it yourself. So no major concerns. But yeah, it was just a little reminder that it hasn't gone away yet.
Well, so the action on track is great, but the party scene has taken a hit.
Absolutely, yeah. The social side is the thing that's been missing. As you can hear, the grid opening now, so we just got a McLaren going down the pit lane behind me. Yeah, the last 2 years I've covered a lot of these races where we've been just locked in a media centre. You can't go anywhere. You're not allowed outside. We weren't allowed on the grid until the end of 2020. Lots of restrictions. There's still a few, but yeah, a lot of it meant basically go to the track and work, and then go to your hotel and stay in your room. And for the teams and the mechanics, that was brutal for a few years. So I think even they are very happy to see that it's got a bit easier, more relaxed now, and they can kind of decompress a bit more as well away from races, because this is race 1 of 23. It's going to be a long old year.
Well, hey, Chris, I did the thing I usually do when I wake up in the morning. First thing is I check Twitter and everything else for anything that happened overnight. Is there any surprises or any news from the grid this morning?
Nothing major so far, actually. There's just been a lot of previewing and people looking forward and getting excited. I mean, a lot of the focus overnight after qualifying was on how much Ferrari has shown that their pre-season pace is good, but can they sustain that? Because obviously it's been a while since they've been in a proper championship battle. Red Bull making a few noises that, okay, we've been beaten the pole position here, but we've definitely got a quick car. And then, as you say, the likes of Alfa Romeo and Haas being nipping at Mercedes' heels. I mean, where I'm stood right now, I've got Valtteri Bottas's grid slot to my right, Kevin Magnussen's right in front of me, and then Fernando Alonso's to my left. And then you have to go beyond him to get to George Russell. So, yeah, the tough start for Mercedes is one where I think most people are going to be focusing in terms of whether they can get on top of things quickly. And Mercedes do think they've made a bit of progress. So maybe they'll be a bit more competitive in race trim than we've seen they had been during testing, because Toto Wolff said last night that it's like they lost 3 days of testing by finding out how bad their problems were here last week. So they only started to respond to their problems at the end of testing. So they really are on the back foot, but they expect to improve quickly.
Hey, Chris, I've got a couple of comments from social media. Question for you. It says, what will lap 1, turn 1 look like? Seems like there's been a lot of lockups there this weekend. But want to see the Haas cars gain a couple of spots. What do you think?
Well, so the consensus in the media center is that maybe not at turn 1, but on lap 1, Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc are going to come together. That's what most people seem to think. I'm not sure why they're so convinced, but we have seen the two of them race very aggressively in the past, and it's been brilliant. Do you guys remember Silverstone 2019? The way they went wheel to wheel was amazing. So I'd love to see that again, but most people seem to think they can't do that they're going to come to tears. So that would work out very well for the likes of Haas. I mean, I think the big fear there is the reliability issues that Kevin Magnussen had during qualifying yesterday with a hydraulics leak, and that limited his running. So he said last night as well that his biggest fear is that that doesn't get fixed for the race, or it rears its head again during the race, because he thinks if his race goes cleanly in terms of a reliable car, he thinks he can go further forward. You know, he's still getting used to this car. He's still learning the ropes again. I think he would probably be targeting at least getting ahead of Valtteri Bottas. For me, what's fascinating is, like say, turn one, if Lewis Hamilton gets beaten by one of the Alfa Romeos or Haas's into turn one, is the Mercedes quick enough to get back ahead? Like, it hasn't looked it in testing. They're more optimistic now, but we'll have to wait and see if it actually plays out in the race or not.
That is really hard to go ahead, Dave. That's hard for me to even say is that can they hold off the Mercedes? Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Chris, what's the talk about the Ferrari engine over there? That seems to have got some horses in it.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's not just about the Ferrari engine, actually, in the same way that you could say the Mercedes engine, because if you look at the front end, yeah, we've got Ferrari obviously at the sharp end, Alfa Romeo and Haas with a car each in Q3. But then from a Mercedes point of view, the Mercedes customer teams are nowhere. Both Aston Martin's out in Q1, McLaren struggling, Williams struggling. Now, Williams seemed to acknowledge, I was down there chatting to the team a little bit ago, because I was actually catching up with Logan Sargent as well after his first race with Carlin in F2 today. And they were saying, look, our car isn't quite where we want it to be yet. But also, yeah, the power unit potentially has a bit of a deficit there. We've got to still wait and see how it pans out, whether they've turned it up fully, whether the heat means they're keeping it a little bit lower. But from a Ferrari perspective, there's no doubt that they've made a big, big step forward. And in many ways, it was expected, wasn't it, with the agreement they came to with the FIA after 2019 that dropped them back so far. They clearly they had a big deficit to make up, and we did expect them to make up eventually. It's taken 2 years at least, but they seem to have got their act together, and they were talking very positively about this engine last year at the end of last season. So I think it's quite a good sign from Ferrari for them to be delivering on those promises, because that's not always been the case in the past.
Hey, Chris, I want to ask you about the sound of that Ferrari engine. During practice on Friday, I really heard it, and it sounded great, and it sounded like even a step towards this new emotive directive that Formula One is talking about for the next power unit. But it sounded really good. Have you been able to tell the difference in that and the other engines?
Yeah, you can normally tell a difference between all four. I mean, we'll call the Red Bull a Honda still, and it was always the Honda that really stood out. But the Ferrari too did have its own distinctive note. And I think, to be fair, I'm in a privileged position that I get to see these cars trackside a lot. I actually think the sound isn't as bad as maybe we first reacted to them in 2014. I think these cars actually sound quite cool. It's just that they don't have that screaming pitch of the V8 that everyone was used to, which really did kind of shake your core and made it a whole visceral experience. But they've still got a cool sound. So yeah, I think they're heading towards that a little bit more. But the Ferrari has been very crisp. I think one thing that's been interesting as well is that they've not had any reliability issues throughout pre-season. So they were maybe able to turn it up a little bit more, a little bit earlier, more so maybe than the others, because they were just running so smoothly. So that might be another reason that we've kind of heard it pushed a little bit harder.
Well, anything else from the grid, Chris? I know that we're going to try to get you in and out. And by the way, your audio is perfect. We were a little worried about that, so it's coming in great. Any other thoughts from the grid right now?
Well, just right now, I'm watching all the cars come onto the grid, actually. Fernando Alonso's just jumped out of his Alpine in front of me. I'm trying not to get run over, which is that's a bad enough task when I'm not even talking. But Sergio Perez has just shown up as well. And I'll tell you what's quite interesting here. I'm gonna try something live. I'm going to try and speak to Fred Varsha, because he stood here frowning down the grid, looking for Valtteri Bottas's car to come. and Lawrence Stroll just walked past him. And what he's done is he's turned his back on me to make sure it's very clear he doesn't want to talk. So that's gone well. But he was up here in what was P6, a really good starting position for Valtteri Bottas. His car's not here on the grid yet, but they're going to be excited at Alfa Romeo, as are Haas. But it's an opportunity for these teams. But it's been so long since they've been fighting at the sharp ends. Do they have the kind of race sharpness that maybe Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes have? That's to be seen, because I mean, Haas specifically haven't had a competitive race for 2 years. So that race team are kind of finding their feet today. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform from that perspective as well.
Go ahead, Bob. You had a question for Chris.
Well, I was just wondering, Nico Hülkenberg did a great job for a guy who'd never even sat in the Aston Martin until Friday. What do we know about Sebastian Vettel's condition? Will he be able to make the turnaround and be in Jeddah next week?
That's TBC, to be honest. I think that does depend on his symptoms and if he's completely clear and if he tests negative. And we haven't had any feedback on that front from Aston Martin. I haven't had it confirmed, but I was told yesterday that he's actually back in Switzerland. He'd gone back in between the race and the test to see his family. So he tested positive while back home in Switzerland, which would mean he'd have to test negative to travel and then travel out to Saudi Arabia. And if I'm honest, if you look at where the Aston Martin was this weekend, I'm not sure Seb's going to want to be rushing back if he doesn't have to for that second race. I think he would be more likely to think, you know what, I would just make sure I'm fully recovered and I will come back for race 3 when we have to go to Australia, because that's a long old trip as well. But as it stands, Aston Martin have actually kept it quite close to their chest, the same way that they did that Seb was even unwell. We knew Daniel Ricciardo wasn't feeling well before he tested positive. The team were testing him regularly and saying that he doesn't feel well, but we don't know if it's COVID or not. With Seb, it came out of the blue. We weren't told. So we'll have to wait and see if it's a quick turnaround for him or not. But if I had to choose right now, I think it's more likely that Hülkenberg will still be in the car for race 2 and then Seb will be back in Melbourne.
I've got one, Chris, just to cover off the tyres. What do we think the plan is for the tyres this weekend, and who's going to use the tyres more effectively?
Well, in terms of a driver using them effectively, Sergio Perez tends to look after his rear tyres really well, especially around here. He's a bit of a master at that, and that can be the limiting factor around Bahrain is those rear tyres going off. But one thing we've actually noticed from Pirelli is they were saying that we've had some temperature swings over the past week. We've had some pretty hot running during testing, but then during this week here of the race weekend, it's been very cool. And they haven't seen a huge difference in terms of the way the tyres degrade. So teams have got kind of a stable baseline to work with. They're expecting everyone to use the soft tyre at the start, or pretty much everyone, because the disadvantage of being on the medium or the hard in terms of warm-up on those opening laps is pretty big. So unless you're starting right at the back, you're going to lose positions if you're not on the soft tyre, they believe. So we're expecting to see everyone start on the soft, pretty much confirms there'll be 2 stopping, and kind of soft, medium, soft seems to be the preferred option. Maybe soft, hard, soft if you can get the hard warmed up enough. But I think it's going to lead to key areas in the race where it's after a pit stop. A little bit like Formula 2, when a car comes out on cold tyres, they're going to be slow for a lap or 2. And that's when you're going to see action. That's when you're going to see fighting. It's not going to be about the undercut and overcut as simply as it used to be. It's going to be about a driver trying to keep it on track and keep it quick on cold tyres after a pit stop, and maybe coming under pressure then from someone who stopped before them. So, maybe a slightly different strategic approach to what we've seen in Formula 1, which really shouldn't be a surprise given how big the scale of the changes are this year.
Hey, Chris, one more from me. I saw that Nico Hülkenberg has a Ukrainian flag on his helmet this weekend. Do you know of any action anybody plans to take before the race start with regard to the Ukrainian situation?
Yeah, there's actually going to be a kind of a gesture with the teams at the front of the grid. All the drivers are going to go to the front of the grid and show that their support for Ukraine. Formula 1 has actually partnered with UNICEF to aid families and children that have been affected by the crisis. So, there's going to be a lot done just before the race starts here, actually, to kind of make that gesture. And just as we move on from that, I was going to try and grab someone that we may have heard from already on the show, and I don't know if you can hear me because his car's just fired up. But Gunther Steiner is right next to me. And Gunther, it's been a long time since you've been this far up on the grid in Formula 1. Are you nervous?
No, I'm not nervous. I'm pretty happy to be here this far up, So obviously, I did any start you do in Formula 1, you're a little bit getting nervous, but it's out of your hand. You just watch how it develops, and hopefully you get past turn 1.
I mean, this car's looked quick throughout pre-season, quick in Kevin's hands, even though he hasn't had a huge amount of experience with it. Are you looking forward rather than backwards? You've got Valtteri in front of you. You've got a Mercedes that doesn't look that quick. Are you thinking you could go forwards today?
We will try for sure. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously Kevin hasn't done starts with this car since more than a year, which is not easy. Obviously, you practice during the testing and during free practice. But when you're standing here, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a good one. You never know.
And what about for Mick? We can't leave him out. He's still qualified well. He's just on the periphery of the points. Do you think he can get in the top 10 today?
I'm sure he will be trying hard because he just missed out because of a small mistake on his quali lap. So to get into Q3, so I'm sure he wants to make up today for it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good luck today. There we go. We got somebody who wanted to talk to us. How nice is that, eh?
Nice job, Chris. Fantastic. Gunther live on the grid. How exciting is that? Hey, guys, we got to get a commercial break in really quick here. But before we do, I want to welcome back our sponsor, CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60. Our digital world is more than just interconnected. It's interdependent. And because of that, security is a top concern for every organization. The Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team knows they're a potential target for a host of digital attacks, which is why they leverage the CrowdStrike Falcon platform to deploy end-to-end security solutions. CrowdStrike revolutionized cybersecurity by harnessing the speed and power of the cloud to identify and stop the most sophisticated cyber attacks. Our cloud-native Falcon platform protects and defends organizations against increasingly complex threats, so you can have the peace of mind to focus on your business momentum, not what's trying to stop it. That's protection that powers you. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, let's go to commercial break, and we'll continue our Bahrain Grand Prix pre-race coverage right after this.
Hello, I'm Jenny Gow from BBC F1. You are listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
The Speed City F1 pre-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, gentlemen, it's been an exciting morning so far. We got some new team members. We got Chris Medland on the grid. We got Dave O'Neill in the studio, Bob Varsha over Zoom, and myself, John Massengill, and Les Kaiser. And we could not be more excited about the beginning of this season. And so, Chris, have you? I know you're over there lingering, trying to get some more interviews. What do you see right now?
Right now, I'm trying to annoy Otmar Zafnauer, but he's been speaking to people that are far more important than I am. So I'm just letting him get on with that. But I'm going to try and bother him and say, Otmar, would you like to speak live on US radio with SiriusXM about your first race with Alpine? How excited are you?
Yeah, very excited. We're starting in two decent positions. We can score points from here. It's a great team, and I'm grateful to be working with the wonderful men and women from Enstone and Berry. It's great. And our two drivers.
Well, I mean, you've not been away long from Formula One, but you're straight back into this race. Does it feel very different being with a new team, or is it like you've never been away?
Well, somebody's asked me that before, and the answer is yes and no. I mean, the team is different. The people are different, but the task is the same. They're all racers. I'm really, really happy to be with the team.
Yeah, and you mentioned the driver's got Fernando. He's just over your shoulder here, starting in 8th place. Esteban just outside the top 10. What do you think is possible today? Because there's still a bit of guesswork, having not seen everyone's cards in pre-season.
Well, there is a bit of guesswork. Our long run pace looked comparable to those around us. So if we can race well and we're clever, both in the points is possible.
Thank you very much, Otmar. Good luck. There we go. Otmar's getting ready for his first race with Alpine. It's it seems strange seeing him in new team kit. He is with a pink car, but he's in blue colours. And I tell you what, one thing that's gone well for him is he's got to look a long way back down the grid to see his old team, Aston Martin, a long way back this weekend. So he's definitely upgraded for at least this race.
You know, thinking of people that are looking backwards, I think of Mr. Bottas.
Yeah.
I like that view.
Yeah, that is an interesting take. What do you think about that, Bob Varsha?
Well, I saw a story this morning that said that Bottas said he was going to hunt down Toto Wolff, the team principal at Mercedes. I don't know if he was just going to give him a or whatever, but with four Ferraris in the top 7, 4 Ferrari engines in the top 7, Bottas landed in a bed of roses, it would appear. And he seems to have the respect of the team, and going forward, things are going to be cool. But yeah, the point is well taken. Who would have guessed that Bottas and Hamilton would be starting next to each other here in the first race of 2022? It's just incredible.
Hey, Bob, you know what? If you want to, we can. I love it when you run down the starting grid and qualifying and everything, just to get everyone up to speed if they're listening on the radio, and remind everybody where everybody stands. Are you good for that?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Rock and roll?
Rock and roll, baby.
All right. Starting on the front row, Charles Leclerc, his third career pole, his second at this racetrack for Ferrari. And I've always said what's good for Ferrari is good for Formula One, and nobody has ever argued with me. Next to him, the world champion, Max Verstappen, Red Bull looking incredibly good. And I'm looking at Adrian Newey, who has experience with the Venturi tunnel era in American Indy cars. So he may have had a leg up when they started putting pen to paper, or in his case, pencil to his drawing board, to design the Red Bull RB18. On row 2, Carlos Sainz Jr. almost became the first Spaniard other than Fernando Alonso to take Formula One pole. Didn't quite get there. He'll be starting next to Sergio Perez in the second of the Red Bulls. On to row 3, there they are, Lewis Hamilton of the Mercedes, Valtteri Bottas, his former teammate, in his new Alfa Romeo drive. On row 4, Kevin Magnussen made one run in Q3 and finds himself up in the top 10. I think that is just, early candidate for drive of the year, and it's not even in a race. Next to him will be Fernando Alonso, the two-time world champion in the first of the Alpines. On row 5, George Russell, bitterly disappointed to be back in the 9 spot in his Mercedes, and both he and Lewis admit that the Mercedes problems are not something you can cure with a setup tweak. So good luck to them. In the 10th spot next to him on row 5 will be Pierre Gasly, who I think also expected more. He led Friday's first practice, and the AlphaTauri should be higher placed. On row 6, Esteban Ocon in the second of the Alpines, and Mick Schumacher in the second of the Haas VF22s. Great job for Mick. On row 7, Lando Norris in the first of the McLarens. And the McLaren boys are really down in the mouth. They just can't seem to figure out what's wrong. Apparently, they think their car is going to be facing another season of being a horse for a very specific course. And Bahrain apparently isn't that course. Next to Norris on row 7 will be Alex Albon, returning to Formula One with the Williams team. And you mentioned earlier that somebody was tweeting or messaging us from Thailand. Remember, Alex Albon races under a Thai flag, even though he was born in Britain. So he's probably got a lot of fans there. On to row 8, and the first rookie, only rookie in Formula One this year, Zhu Guanyu in the second Alfa Romeo, the first Chinese driver in F1. So expect big TV numbers there. Next to him will be Yuki Tsunoda in the second AlphaTauri. On to row 9, Nico Hülkenberg, as I mentioned, sat in the car for the first time on Friday morning and still out-qualified his Aston Martin teammates. So good on Nico. Next to him in the 18 spot will be Daniel Ricciardo in the second McLaren. And I feel for Ricciardo, who had his COVID positives and did not get much testing at all. He's really just trying to figure out that car. On the 10th and final row, Lance Stroll in the second Aston Martin. A lot of heads being shaken down there. And in the 20th and final spot, Nicolas Latifi in the Williams. So there you have it.
Fantastic, Bob. That you give me goosebumps watching you do that on YouTube. So thank you very much. But hey, Chris Medland, how's it going out there on the grid? Anybody else that you can grab while you're out there?
Yeah, your timing is excellent, because I've just annoyed Andreas Seidel, the McLaren team principal, was stood next to Lando Norris's car. Zach Brown's looking around the team at the moment as well. Andreas, probably not the way you were expecting this season to start, certainly not the way you were hoping for it to start. But what do you think Lando specifically can do today from P13 on the grid?
Well, it's obviously a long race, first race of the season, but a lot can happen. We have seen in testing and also during this first weekend that there's different technical issues around as well. There could be a race of attrition as well. We will focus on ourselves. We need to make sure we have a clean race first, and then hopefully that's enough to fight getting into the points.
Yeah, you've had some issues with your brakes and overheating during testing, and when you came here. Is that solved now? Are you confident that you will do a race distance?
Yeah, no, I would say we have an interim solution on the car now, which worked so far. So don't expect any issue from that side for the race. In general, we just need to find more performance. We just didn't have the right level of performance yesterday. It was difficult for us, not enough grip. So let's see how it goes today. And then we're working hard back home together with the team out here in order to get back to where we want to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, you looked after testing in Barcelona like you're going to be right at the sharp end. Are you hopeful that this will just be a blip this weekend?
Still too early to say. Yeah, as I said, we had a good test in Barcelona.
We were quite happy with the car, quite reliable as well. And unfortunately, we lost the rhythm a bit at the test here, which I think put us on the back foot also for this race weekend here. So we need to see, but the entire team is working hard, as I said before, in order to make sure we get back to the front again.
And just finally, Bob Varsha just was saying that he feels sorry for Daniel Ricciardo. He missed that final test with COVID. Is this a bit of a learning process for him? Is this a race he just needs to get comfortable with the car in?
Yeah, no, for sure. Didn't help with this limited testing to lose days. But okay, it's something we can't change. Most important thing is fit again. He's healthy, and with the experience he's having, I'm sure after that race today, he's back where he wants to be and where we want him to be.
Oh, good stuff. Good luck today, Andreas. Thank you very much for giving us the time. Andreas, see you there. I mean, he's wearing a mask right now, but he's actually always smiling, even when things are difficult. He's very pragmatic with the way things are at McLaren. It's why he's been so successful there. I'm now trying to dance out the way because Steiner and Brown are fighting basically on the grid. They're wrestling with each other, having some fun ahead of the national anthem here in Bahrain.
Hey, Chris, I was thinking about, you talk about smiling. I think that Kevin Magnussen has stolen Daniel Ricciardo's smile for the weekend at least, because every photo I've seen of him, he looks like Ricciardo with this giant grin just plastered across his face.
Yeah, he's been delighted. I mean, I was chatting to him a little bit before he flew out here, before the deal was done. He was on the plane and he was absolutely buzzing. It looked like his F1 career was over. So to get the chance to come back and in a competitive car was a huge surprise. I'm hoping you guys can still hear me over a massive jet that's deciding to fly over the grid right now. It's a big flyby. But yeah, Kevin has just been so happy, so excited. I think when he was last here at Haas, it was a very tough time for him. But then he kind of had consoled himself that his time in F1 was done. He wasn't holding any anger towards it. So then when he did get the chance to come back, like, it was just such an unexpected positive for him that he's just so happy. And I mean, who could have thought the car would be this competitive? But even in Haas's wildest dreams, I don't think they thought it would be this good. And I've actually just moved back to his car now, so that's what you can hear in the background firing up. I can actually tell you that smile's gone. He's in race mode now. He's got a proper serious face on. He is thinking about what he's going to do on this first lap, how he's going to approach this first race back. Still a big learning process for him. You know, he hasn't been in an F1 car for over a year in a race scenario, but I think a good leveler for him is the fact these are all brand new cars, brand new regulations, slightly different driving styles, and he's getting serious. Yeah, he can still crack a smile while he puts his race suit on, so he's relaxed, but this is the moment now. This is when we don't disturb the drivers. This is when they really get in the zone. His trainers bring him his helmet over, and when the visor goes down, they can really focus on what they want to do, which is go racing.
Ha. By the way, whatever microphone you're using, it is fantastic. We did not even hear that jet. All we can hear is you talking, so you've done a good job of getting your gear set up this weekend. Well, guys, we got to get another quick break in, and when we come back, we'll be about 10 minutes from the start of the Formula One 2022 season. You listen to Speed City live from Austin. Back after these messages.
Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, welcome back to the show. We are so excited. We are now just a few minutes away from the start of the season. And Chris Medland's on the grid. Chris, do you have a guest?
I do. I've got Pirelli's head of motorsport, Mario Isola, with me. We've just got off the grid, actually. We're stood in the pit lane because it's safe now. There's no cars in the pit lane. They're all on the grid. But Mario, just wanted to talk to you about the strategy for this weekend. Brand new tyres going to be racing for the first time with the 18-inch ones. What are you expecting? Are we going to get something similar, or is it going to be a big difference to what we've seen from F1 in the past?
That's a good question. Nobody knows exactly what is going to happen. They are free to start with any tire. So I believe that the soft has a great advantage, a big advantage compared to the medium. And probably they start on the soft because they don't want to lose the position. The other point is that on the paper, soft, medium was a quicker strategy, but we have only Williams and Alfa Romeo with 2 sets of medium. So they have to plan a different strategy that can be soft, medium, soft, hard, soft, or maybe using all the 3 compounds. Everything is possible. One stop is marginal. I believe that they have to manage too much the pace. So let's see what happens, but I believe 2 stops will be for the majority.
And these tyres, obviously, less sidewall, less forgiving. It makes the cars a bit harder. do we see differences in terms of will drivers be punished more for lockups, that sort of thing, or is it still fairly similar to the past?
No, you are right. The braking phase is more difficult. Front locking is possible. They are getting used to this because we saw a lot more front locking in Barcelona and during the preseason test. Now they are going to drive the car in a different way. Car is stiffer. Oversteer is snappy because of the characteristics of the aero package. So probably a bit more difficult for drivers to drive this car compared to last year.
Yeah, they're going to be struggling tonight, aren't they?
Yeah, struggling a lot.
Thank you very much.
That's good for the show.
It is. It'll look great, and hopefully it'll sound great on the radio too. Mario, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, they do sound great. Hey, Dave O'Neill, you being an ex-Haas F1 team manager, you probably got a better grasp of all these rule changes. Give us a quick down and dirty for what's changed this year, and so everybody has that in the back of their mind as the race goes on.
Okay, in no particular order, obviously, first things first, safety. So there's been an element of change in the front of the car can absorb more of a impact, and also in the rear as well. So the engine will break away now much easier without bringing the fuel cell with it, as we saw with the Grosjean crash a couple of years ago. The cars will run on more sustainable fuel. They'll have the same power units in the car with a view to get them changed for 2025, I think is there. Also, the front and rear wings will be more basic, shall we say? So trying to help racing, I guess. So being able to follow other cars at a closer distance, and then being able to do the overtake without losing grip as they come into the braking zones. You also got the ground effects, which is coming from, again, isn't the first time we've seen it in F1, but it's been in the 70s, and then it was taken away as it got mad. Development went mad and wasn't controlled. We also have the wheels, tyres and wheels, which I guess are one of the biggest features you'll see from the TV. Not just the look, but also how they work with the car and the aero, where the aero meets the mechanical. We also have the wheel covers, which go over. If you'll see the difference, over the front wheels, it almost looks like a mudguard or a fender. This is to help control the airflow to the back of the car, and also keep the grip on the front of the car when they're following people in front.
Yeah, they look like a motorcycle, like a fender, don't they?
Yeah. So I guess all in all, all the changes are to make the racing better, closer, and also keep us on our couches.
Did you see that we've been talking on Speed City all the time about all the American sponsors? You're talking about those wheels and the wheel covers. Did you see the McLaren car, how they used the Google Chrome colors, and they really meld nicely with that McLaren car, which I think is just gorgeous this year. But I thought that was a really cool use of sponsor and car and all that. Made it look really cool. What's going on over there, Chris? Anything new?
Sadly not. This is the bit where we get moved out the way, actually, so the drivers can get on with their thing. So I've just moved back into the paddock where you've got a lot of VIPs and guests moving around, but team personnel, they're getting into the garages, they're getting themselves set up and ready to go. I mean, we've got about 5 minutes until the formation lap would start, so the grid has to clear and kind of make space. And all that noise and all that distraction that has been there, it's something that's always quite interesting to hear the drivers say, the way that it's that you're in a big event because there's so much going on around you, people wanting your attention and your time, and then you sit in the car and eventually the mechanics clear off, take off the tire blankets and move away, and it's just you and 19 other drivers sat on the grid suddenly on your own to go and do what you really want to go and do. So they're getting very close to that time now, and everyone here is just getting ready for lights out.
Just one quick one, Chris, before we go, is what's the word on the street with the race directors as opposed to director? For this weekend.
Yeah,
how do we think that's going to work?
So we've got Niels Wittig, who is the race director this week, who used to work in DTM. He's going to be doing this first race weekend, and he only met all the drivers together on Friday in the driver briefing for the first time. But they were all actually very positive. I was chatting to Oscar Piastri, the Alpine reserve, on Saturday morning, and he was saying that it seemed to go down well. The two McLaren drivers said the same, that he was very clear with his information, his delivery, the way he says he's going to work. One of the things I think is brilliant is he said to the drivers, the track limits are the white line. Anything over the white line is outside track limits, so you could be penalised for it. And that will be the rule at every single racetrack this season. It will not change. And that sort of clarity we've needed for so long. To me, it's so basic. It's like any other sport. You have the dimensions of a pitch and you play within it. And I never quite understood why we allowed changes to happen session to session at certain circuits. And when drivers said, oh, that one's hard to stay inside, so we're going to let you go wide there, it just didn't make sense to me. I think it's a driver skill thing that even if you can't quite see the line on the exit, then you've got to see how much speed you want to carry through the corner to risk it. And Oscar agreed with me at least, so I realised my opinion wasn't totally stupid. It does help when an F1 driver does say to you, actually, yeah, that is okay. You know, you do have a decent grasp of that, rather than you have no idea what you're talking about, which happens a lot.
Well, I look forward to seeing how they're going to end.
I think a lot of the drivers are happy with that. And
well, that's very well put, Chris.
Yeah,
and
well,
we
that's the
should point
thing.
out-
Turn forward's the big.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing how they're going to enforce that.
Yeah. Hey, guys, we got 2 minutes. Let's start with you, Bob Varsha. Just a quick, who do you think's going to win? Who do you want to win? And any other comments about what's going to happen?
I think Max Verstappen is going to win. I want Kevin Magnussen to win, but, you know, we're all dreamers at this point. I do want to point out, though, that Chris beautifully summed up what the impact of Niels Wittich already is, and that's all a part of the report on the Abu Dhabi fiasco that was released yesterday. And I've read through it, and we'll talk about it more on our post-race show, because there's a good bit of stuff in there that I think people like to hear about.
All right, Dave O'Neill, who do you got? Who do you want to win? Who do you think's going to win?
K-Mag.
K-Mag and K-Mag. Ah, that is going out on a limb. I like it.
I'm going to go with Max winning, K-Mag in the points.
There you go. Chris Medland, what about you?
So I've gone for Max to win it ahead of Charles, and Perez to get third on the podium. But I'm also going to go with K-Mag in the points. Really hoping that holds up. And Bottas in the points too. Let's have some nice redemption stories there.
Yeah. Bottas for the bonus.
Yeah, that's good. All right, well, everybody else chose Verstappen. I chose Leclerc to win, and of course, K-Mag to be on the podium anywhere, any points at all. So, well, gentlemen, we are out of time, but don't forget, we will be back right after the race, but stick on this channel, SiriusXM Channel 81, for the entire race, brought to you by the BBC team, the 5 Live team. So, and we will go on at the top of the hour likely, but immediately when the BBC team is done. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in on social media, and we'll talk to you after the race.
Ciao, y'all.
Ciao.